And I think we're live. Yeah, we're live. Good morning, everyone. And oh golly, spooky stories. I love spooks. Don't you love spooky stories? My daughter was watching. There's a new series on Netflix. See, I'm diving straight into this. There's a new series on Netflix. I haven't watched it, but my daughter is watching it, and it's called You, Y-O-U, and it's about a serial killer. And she said she called me yesterday and she said, "Oh, Mum," she said, "I didn't get to bed until 2:30 in the morning." She said, "I couldn't stop watching this thing." And then she said, "And then I got so scared." She imagines all sorts of people peering in through the window. So that's sort of spooky, scary, but not a ghosty thing. It's a spooky, scary sort of serial killer type thing. But she's so hooked on it. She said, "I nearly called you last night at 2 in the morning, or 2 this morning." She said, "I nearly called you just to talk me down." She said, "I was so scared myself to death." And you know what that's like? I've been in that place. You're on your own. There you are. You're watching something. You get involved. It might be a spooky movie or a movie that, and it's sort of so weird because all of a sudden you realise, oh my, I'm on my own. You know, I've just watched that thing and I'm on my own. And you go to bed, sort of scary. This is scary. Anyway, good morning, everybody. Good morning to my spirit guide Gregor, who is, as always, standing to my right side. He's laughing at me. He has his hand on my shoulder. He's laughing at me and saying, you know, because he and we have been in some brilliant, spooky places. And you'll be hearing more about those as we go along with our story time. But for today, we'll say we have Michelle on remote again. Say good morning, Michelle.
Good morning.
And before we go any further, I know 1 or 2 people have been asking, how is your dad and his ankle? He's doing okay?
He's surviving. And we are too while we take care of him.
Right. That's all we're going to say about that then. And but do wish him well, or whatever it is we wish people in those situations. Let's wish him well.
Let's just wish him to get better soon.
Yeah, there you are. I'm wishing him a speedy recovery. So, I know that some of you are here. I'm going to only briefly recap on last week's story because this is part 2 of our haunted mansion story. So we're in this haunted mansion somewhere in Connecticut or New York State or somewhere around there. It is a huge mansion I'm going to say in hundreds if not thousands of acres. Beautiful property, very beautiful property, which was originally owned by a very famous family, a very well-known family. The last of the family to survive was a man who was very well known. He was well known as an academic. I think he wrote books. He was a professor of some kind. Really well known in the New York area for the work that he did. And I don't know too much more about him. But if you remember the tail end of our story last week, was when I met him. He had a massive heart attack. Yes, I did say I met him. Yes, he had a massive heart attack, and he had come in search of his sister. He'd come back to his family home, which had been sold many years before, and his main goal in coming to visit with me, to see me in his old home, was because he was extremely concerned for his sister. Now, last week I told you of the security guard that's such a wonderful story, and who was now my own personal bodyguard. And I don't think he strayed more than a few inches from my side all the time we were in the mansion. But also, if you remember, as I talked to this man who wanted help with his sister, and he'd asked me, please Rosemary, would you help us? She won't listen to me. My parents have tried. We've all tried. So many of us have tried to sort of pry her out from this property to come with us, where she will be so much happier and so much healthier. And she just doesn't listen, and she doesn't want to listen. And he said to me, I think the issue is that she is afraid. She's been here for so very, very long, and this is her home, and this is where she feels safe, and so she's afraid to move on. Now, some of you may be thinking, can we do that when we die? Do we have a choice then? Can we? I thought, you might be thinking, oh well, I thought we just were sent off, or our angels came and carried us, or whatever. Can we actually have a say in where we go? Can we actually have a say in what we do and what happens to us when we die? Do we have that sort of power, that sort of energy? And it is true that there are certain people, it doesn't happen very often, it's a very minute percentage of people who just say, no, I'm not going, no, sorry, not going there, I'm staying where I am. Usually those people are people who have passed in some sort of a traumatic or difficult circumstance, where their mind simply cannot compute what has happened to them. They simply are not able to make sensible decisions, and they're so caught up in their own emotions that they become frozen in fear. And obviously this is what was happening to this lady. Even when her brother passed, and the first thing he did was to see if he could find her, and then when he found her, tried to convince her to go with him, she was frozen in fear. And so he was saying to me, could you please help her? Now, as a spiritual medium and a healer for a long time, for lots and lots of years, I have done all sorts of, I've done trance work, I've done rescue work. Rescue work is where we try to help lost souls. We try to encourage them and to help them to, to sort of allow their angels to take them to a safe place. Rescue work can be extremely difficult on the medium's behalf, because the person who needs to be rescued will often want to use the medium's body and to relive the trauma and to relive what is happening to them. In this case, however, we could say that it was a rescue. Absolutely, we could say that it's a rescue. And if you'd like, make a note, Michelle. I will tell you a story at some point in the future about maybe even one or two of my rescue experiences. But for now, this wasn't so much a rescue as my being able to connect with this lady and to talk to her, and her brother saying to me, please Rosemary, please, could you help? We left that room, my bodyguard at my side, my friend and her friend, and we left the house. But as I walked out of the room, if you remember, and this is where I left the story last week, there was this beautiful staircase, a absolutely gorgeous, one of those beautiful sweeping staircases that are often in these fancy mansions. And as I came out of the door into the hallway to leave the mansion, I felt this prickling on the back of my neck, and I turned and I saw this lady, this man's sister, standing on the stairs, looking at me in such a way as to absolutely not want me around. Again, she was frozen in fear, and she, in no uncertain terms, told me, don't come back. All right, so we left, and when we were outside, once again in the sunshine, once again, sort of in the daylight, and we could breathe again, and we could assess what had happened so far, I talked to the people who were there, and we went back to Becky's house. Becky's the lady who used to work for this particular company who owns the mansion. And we went back to her house and we had lunch, and then I talked to Grey Eagle and I said, I'm not quite sure what we're supposed to do now, but I'd already before I left the mansion said to my lovely bodyguard, we're going to be coming back tonight. I knew that much was going to happen. We're going to come back tonight, late tonight. And he said, well, if you're coming, I'm coming with you because you'll need protecting. And I smiled at him and I said, you're very welcome to come. You're very welcome to be there with us. So as I say, we went back to Becky's house. Becky's husband wanted to come, and a couple of other people definitely wanted to come. Can we come as well? And I reminded them, this is not, this is not a party. This is not something we're necessarily going to really enjoy. This is work. This is real work for me. And if you come as a helper. You come as somebody who's going to help me to help this lady. So fast forward, we all arrive back at the mansion. Now, this would make the best movie because this mansion, you know what it's like in the dark, and these buildings seem much bigger. They loom and sort of in the sky. They're much more imposing looking, definitely spooky looking. And of course, there was, and who knows who planned this, but there was the proverbial full moon sort of hanging in the sky, fairly low in the sky, sort of illuminating, because there was no light around anywhere, illuminating this mansion. And it was around 11:30 at night. There were no lights, there was no electricity in the place, so we'd come prepared. And I'd said to everybody before we came, I said to Becky, we need to take a picnic of some kind. We need to have food, we need to have a bottle of wine or something to drink at least. And we're going to sort of try, if we can, to simulate sort of an event or a party of some kind. And I was thinking to myself, this would be, if I can actually get her to go with her brother, this would be a great party for her last party in this place. So we turn up there, and now all of the chattering has ceased. All of those people who were with me who thought this was such a good idea and it was going to be great and all the rest of it, you could feel they were really seriously subdued. Because it was spooky and they didn't know what to expect. So here is the story of this lady who, her brother was there waiting for us, and he told me the story, which I then told to everyone else who was there with me that night. This lady, when she was a young woman, had been married. She and her fiance were absolutely 1000% head over heels in love, and they had this huge family wedding, and everybody was, if you find out where this place is, you can actually look at the history of this person. But anyway, she was absolutely in love. Now we're going back a lot of years, right? And they went on their honeymoon, and they were having a wonderful time until they got notification that her husband, and neither of them knew this, but her husband, it turns out, they discovered was a first cousin or something, which was in those days a definite no-no. You couldn't marry that person. You certainly couldn't have children with that person. And so imagine this young bride, completely and absolutely in love. Her whole world is now shattered because they're saying that the marriage has to be annulled. It's illegal for them to be together, and on it goes. And the upshot of all of this is that she committed suicide. She took her own life. So devastated was she still that the first place that she wanted to go, and of course the only place that she felt that she could go, was to safety. And her home, the mansion, represented her total and absolute safety. She knew that if she was there and she stayed in there and she stayed protected by those walls of her family home, that she would be safe. So now we're fast forwarding at least, I'm going to say at least 50 years. And I'm going on the age of a brother, who I do believe was in his 70s when he passed of a heart attack. So she was in this place by herself, wandering the halls, wandering the rooms, wandering all of the dark corners of this mansion. She was in this place by herself for all of these years. She became absolutely fascinated with what went on in the place. She would sometimes go and watch the lessons which Becky used to take, teaching people how to sell, teaching people how to, I don't know, whatever it is that you teach people to do in a corporation. Every year, and they may still do this, but every year they would have a huge Christmas party and everybody from the company would be invited to come to the mansion. And it was Becky's job to organise the party, and she would sort of, put up the tree and put up the lights and do all of those things and organise the food and the caterers and so on. Her husband used to make sure, his job was to make sure that the fires in all of the rooms, the downstairs rooms, were well lit, and he would have to sort of put the wood on the fires from time to time through the evening. There would be dancing in the ballroom. There would be music. It would be a really, really festive time. And so eventually I'm talking to the brother who is telling me all of this stuff about her, and all the time I'm listening to him, I'm also, at this point now, the group of us who are there, we're sitting in a circle on these rickety chairs we've found. We have some sort of whatever they call those lamps, that, the kerosene lamps or whatever, we have those to light the room. And as the brother is talking to me, I'm recounting everything that he's saying to me, so that everyone in the room who came with me knows, what this lady's story actually is. And as we listen and as we sit very quietly, every single person who came with me had a visitor, someone from their family in the spirit world, who came to give each of them a message. It was almost as if they were being given a gift for helping with this, whatever this was. So I was able to give everyone there a message, and I knew at some point that the lady we had come to save was listening, paying attention. I didn't see her at this point, but I could feel her listening as I told each person in the room something about themselves, something about their family, describing to them the members of their family who had come to our party. At some point then, I said to everyone, we need to hold hands, just like you'd see in the movies. And we just need to be quiet and hope that she comes to talk to us, because I don't want to force her, but I'm asking her, would she like to come to us? Would she like to talk to us? So we're sitting there for quite a little while, and you could hear a pin drop in this place. And then all of us hear it, this very faint sound of music, which sort of seems to be floating in the air. It's not music that comes from a piano being banged in the next room. It's sort of almost ethereal. The sound is so ethereal, and it's on the air, and we could hear this music. And it sounds to me something like a Brahms or a Chopin. It's a waltz of some kind, or that's what it sounds like. And this music is so faint, we can only barely hear it, but at this point everyone looks at everyone else, and somebody whispers, "Can you hear the music?" And I say, "Shh, let's just let it happen." And as we sit and we wait, we begin to hear a swish, swish sound on the floor around us. And I realise at first I'm thinking, what is that? And then I realise that it's the sound of long skirts swishing on the floor. And then as I'm listening and I'm looking, I see her. And she's wearing a beautiful long gown and she's dancing. And we can all of us hear the swishing of her skirts on the floor as she's dancing to the music. And she becomes for a while lost in this music. And we're all riveted now because we can all hear this sound. And, you know, for those who couldn't see her, I'm softly describing that she's in the room with us. And you could almost see the goosebumps rising up on everyone's arms as the swishing gets closer and closer to us. And at some point, I reach into the basket that we've brought with us and I bring out the drinks. Only simple things mostly, but we did bring a glass of wine. And we all begin to sip our drinks. We're at a party. We're wanting to join in and to give this lady hope, which will be hopefully her last dance, her last ball before she leaves this house. And eventually, because we're not pushing her, I see her brother and I see her parents standing with her brother, and they're watching all of this. And we hear them, and we hear more feet on the ground. We hear shuffling as if other people are dancing. And then we hear sounds which feel like the sounds that you might hear in a ballroom of many people dancing and skirts swishing, swishing along the floor. And we hold our breath and we wait in this dark place with just the light of a kerosene lamp to light our way to see all of this. And then, without any warning, I feel her breath on my neck. I feel her breathing close to me. And then I hear her whisper, and she points to Becky. And Becky's sitting next to her husband, and she whispers in my ear, "I know them." She comes to the ball every Christmas. I know them. And he keeps the fires stoked high and the flames shine bright. I know them. They take care of my home. And I relay this to Becky and her husband, and Becky begins to quietly cry a little, because that's exactly what she's been trying to do, not realizing that she was taking care of this lady's home. And he, she says, pointing to her husband, he goes out into the cold and he brings in lots of logs and he makes sure the fires are kept high and the fires are burning. Will you thank them for me? And I relay the message. And then I hear the swishing of skirts, and off she goes again, and she's dancing again, but then she comes back to me and she tells me her story. I don't want to go with them, she tells me, pointing to her brother and her parents. I want to stay here. I don't want to go with them. And I gently look at her and I said, you don't want to go with them because you're afraid. But why would you be afraid of your brother and your parents who love you so, so much? Well, I'm not going, she says. I'm not going. They can't make me. And I nod at her and I agree and I say, you know, you're right. They can't make you, but they love you so much. And again, she moves away and the music gets a little louder. And now everyone in this group, this circle, we're all holding hands now. and I can feel the grip on both my hands where people are holding onto me tightly because they're scared, they're spooked, but they definitely want to be here. They don't know what to do and how can they help. And they tell me later their hearts are thumping in their chest, and all the time I keep my eyes on this lovely young woman who has not aged one little bit. She's still as beautiful as she was. And I keep my eyes on her as I watch her dance around the room. And then she comes back to me again. And you can see that she wants to go with her family, but she wants to stay in her home because it's all she's known for all of these years. But she really wants to go with her family, and especially her brother, who she's watched for so long and been a part of his life without him even knowing it. And then she comes back to me again and she whispers in my ear, how do I go? If I left, how would I leave? What would I do? And I smile at her and I smile at her brother and I beckon him to come closer to her, and I say to her, just hold his hand. Hold his hand and he'll take you. When you were children, you had a beautiful and a wonderful relationship. When you grew into adults, you loved him more than anything. And he's come to take you home now. Not to this dusty old mansion that you've been living in. He's come to take you home. He's come to take you to the light. He's come to take you to God. Won't you go with him? No, she says, no. But, and she tentatively, carefully reaches out her hand to him, and he holds her hand and he pulls her gently to him. And the next he's holding her in his arms, and he looks at me and he smiles, and I know it's a thank you, and I also know it's goodbye. And the next moment they're all gone and we're left with just the music. And I think it's over, and I think it's done. I think, that was a good thing. I was so pleased that she was finally safe. And just as I'm about to sort of sit up straight and take a breath, the music gets a little louder still, and there's a swish of skirts, almost as if someone's running across the floor. We can hear the footsteps, all of us. We can hear the footsteps, we can hear the swishing of skirts. And then again I feel her breath on my face, on my neck. She breathes into my ear. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going home. And off she goes. And the music gets a little louder still, until then it begins to fade. And we sit there, all of us, those of us who have witnessed this, those of us who have heard it, even if they didn't see it, they heard it, you couldn't mistake it. And we sit there and we're all of us a little bit stunned. And then I feel the bodyguard, whose hand I've been holding all this time, and he squeezes my hand and he says, wow, thank you, Rosemary. And they all look at each other, and I say, why don't we have one last drink, and why don't we just eat these cheese and crackers before they dry up on us, and then we can leave. And that is what we did. We walked out into the night. The moon was full and hanging low in the sky. It was an incredible and a beautiful night. We got outside into the courtyard, none of us saying very much. We were all a little bit too stunned, I think. And I turned back to look at the mansion, and I smiled to myself. When I first went there, it was definitely haunted. There was definitely a presence there. But as I looked at it in the night, in that huge courtyard, gazing up at this mansion, a peace came over me and an incredible feeling, because I knew the house, the mansion, was haunted no longer. And the woman who'd been trapped there for 50 more years was safe and well and in the light and with her family in the spirit world where she belonged. That's the end of the story. So we have time, I think, for comments or questions or whatever. I do hope you're enjoying my story time, because I'm certainly enjoying my story time. So who do we have here, Michelle? Do we have anyone here? I keep seeing lots of stuff going on here, but of course I can't read it because I can't see. So how are you doing?
I'm good.
Did you like that story?
I did. I like that story a lot. Reese is on with you too. He was watching this morning. He made it for the story.
Good morning, my darling boy. You know, he was so excited last week to come on. And when I told him how many, we had thousands of people watching this, our story time, he laughed at me this morning. He said, "Does that mean I'm famous?" And I just laughed at him and I said, "I think it might." He loves my story times. Of course, my story times with Reese are very different than the story times I'm telling here. But his favourite so far, I think, is the Land of Jello, which maybe I'll read to you all one day, because they're my children's story times, and maybe Reese can encourage all of his friends to come on and we'll have a children's story time. What about that? All right. So, hi, my darling boy, and I love you, I love you, I love you. And guess what? And you can't even answer me back. I love you more. Can't even say, no, I love you more. But I do, I love you more. Keep going, Michelle, now.
Karen is on this morning. She says hello.
Morning, Karen.
Carol is on. She says, hello, Rosemary. We love you.
Oh, thank you, Carol. That's so nice.
Daniela's on. She said, good morning, Rosemary from Milan, Italy.
Good morning, good morning. We were talking about Italy yesterday. I was on with my friend yesterday, and we were saying, I wonder when we can fly again. I wonder when we'll be able to come back to Italy, because we so want to go back to Italy, don't we, Reese? Reese, one of Reese's favourite places in the world to go. Yep.
She said, I've read all your books, and they were very helpful to me when my father died.
Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you so much. Thank you for letting me know. Okay, keep going.
Sarah's on. She says, good morning from Chicago.
Is Sarah, did you say?
Uh-huh.
Good morning, Sarah. I bet it's cold there, isn't it? Well, actually, Reese called me this morning and he said, it's going to be 72 degrees, Mosey, today, which means I'm going to play out in the garden. So that's nice. For people who are stuck in New York, it's nice, you know, in cold weather. It's nice to think that at least you can get a little bit of fresh air. Yep, next.
All right, Wendy's on this morning. She says hello, and she made a point to help us out by blasting Google Translator. We love our Google Translator.
Oh, nice. I wonder how that works. We'll
know
talk
how
about
Google
it,
Translator
Wendy.
works.
We'll talk
You know all about Google Translator.
Well, I do, but I don't know how Wendy would be able to do it. But hey.
Well, no, we had some comments, and she said, make sure you're using Google Translator.
Oh,
so
bless. Thank you,
She had her
Wendy.
back. I giggled a little.
Bless you. You know, we get so many comments from people all over the world, and we so want to talk to you, but we can't talk to you if we don't understand what you're saying to us. So please, before you send in your question or your comment, please use Google Translate and send it to us that way, and then at least we can say hello to you and we know what it is you're talking about or what it is you want to say to us.
Joanna's on and she says, good morning. Hello from Quebec, Canada.
Good morning. Good morning. Where is Karen from? Karen's from Toronto. So we've got someone from Quebec and someone from Toronto. Quebec, it's cold up there, isn't it? It's the north. Wow, yes. I've been to Quebec. I had one of the worst experiences of my life just a little bit further up on the St. Lawrence River I went, somebody said you really should go whale watching, so I put myself in a boat, and not by myself, I might add. It was probably one of the worst experiences that I've ever had in my entire life, and I shall never do it again, because I was throwing up the whole time. But anyway, and people had to hold on to me so I didn't actually fall over into the water. But there we go. Keep going, Michelle.
Ivy is on, and she says, good morning.
Who?
From Camp Ivy.
Ivy, good morning, Ivy.
Campbell River, British Columbia.
Oh, right. Oh, well, thank you for joining us. That's a long way away. Keep going.
Lewis says, good day, Rosemary. So good to hear your voice.
Good morning, Lewis. So nice of you to join us. We don't have any comments yet about if anybody enjoyed my story.
We haven't gotten to those yet. I'm just going through the list.
Okay. It's difficult for Michelle because she has to scroll through, don't you, darling? So keep going. I'm going to let you keep going.
Denise is on. She said hello from Riverside, California.
Good morning, Denise. We're all over the place. We're in Canada. We're in Colombia. We're in California. We're wherever we are. Chicago. We're all over the place. We love this. You see, Reese.
Stephanie says, good morning,
just...
Rosemary. Thank you for spreading your love.
Hold on 1 second. If I can just say to Reese, you see how many people all over the world now know who you are, my darling, darling boy. Sorry, repeat that to me again, Michelle.
I said, Steffi said,
morning,
hi,
Stephanie.
Rosemary. Thank you for spreading love.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Maggie's on. She says, good morning. I'm late.
Oh, well, that's all right. You can always replay this because, you know, the good thing about doing these things is you can go back and find it on Facebook. But also, when Michelle is finished with it, uploading, downloading, and doing all that little magical stuff that she does, it will also be on YouTube. So you can find me on my YouTube channel, but you can also, you know, go into Facebook and replay it as well. So if you missed a bit, or if you only tuned in this morning and you want to hear, you know, the first half of the story, you know, you can do that as well, which is great, isn't it? Yeah.
Marie says, good morning.
Good morning, Marie.
And then Maggie said that the story was beautiful.
Thank you.
The next comment was from Cheryl.
Good morning,
and
Cheryl.
It says, hello, Rosemary. Thank you for sharing this beautiful story. Heartwarming and so uplifting.
Thank you. Yeah, I thought it was great. It was the whole experience of being in that mansion at midnight. Did I forget to mention it was at midnight? And we did hear a church clock somewhere striking as we're watching all of these people dancing around the ballroom. It was definitely sort of spooky, but in a really, really good way. Keep going.
Joanne said, I knew this beautiful story from your book.
But you know, when I tell it, I add little details that I can't possibly put in the book. You know, when you're writing in a book and you're telling stories in the book, you've only got, you know, you can only use so many words. A book can only be so long, and a lot of the little details do, unfortunately, they do get left out. So, you know, when I'm retelling the story live on a show like this, I'm able to add some little details that perhaps were not in the book. And also, I do think that, you know, I love it, even if I've read an author a trillion times and I've read a story several times. The idea of an author or somebody actually reading the story, even if it's fiction, the idea of them reading it and they sort of get into the emotion of it, and you get a real feeling that you can't possibly get from reading something. And I love to read. I love to listen to authors I actually love to listen to most people who've got good stories to tell. Keep going, Michelle. I know they keep coming in. I keep seeing them popping up here.
Lewis would like to know if you know if his family are with him.
I'm going to simply say always, Lewis, always. And that, just to let you know, that comes from Grey Eagle. And he knows these things much better than I do. Yeah, keep going.
Maggie Maggie said, I've read the story in your book, but it's so... There is so much more when I hear you retell it.
Yeah. Well, I'm not only telling the story in black and white, I'm actually reliving the emotions and, you know, trying to give a sense of the atmosphere that was there, because it was so weird. And when we came out and everybody had stopped being, you know, because when we first came out of that mansion, everybody was speechless and nobody quite knew what to do or what to say. This lovely bodyguard, my personal bodyguard, was holding me and hugging me and asking me, are you okay? So on and so forth. And he was so lovely. It was, so once we got back to Becky's house, people had found their voices again, and they had you can imagine they had a trillion questions, but they were so amazed, so amazed that they heard the swishing of the skirts. They heard the music. It wasn't just me telling a story. They heard all of this stuff, which reminds me, perhaps next week, I'll tell you of my first trip to the mountain. Make a note, Michelle, of going to the mountain. Actually, it was my second trip, but it's just semantics. But I'm going to tell you about my experience with the Apache in the Superstition Mountains, which were which are actually in wherever they are in. Oh gosh, I want to say Colorado, but it's actually Phoenix. Superstition Mountains are in Phoenix. I went there. I'll tell you the story of when I went there the first time, and then I'll tell you the story of when I went with my editor, Joanne, and what we heard then. And it's amazing, because when you're in these situations, it's not just the medium who necessarily hears or sees. It's, you know, everyone who is with the medium can often hear things, definitely hear, but sometimes see things as well. And so they just were so amazed that they were able to hear the swishing of the skirts, the dancing, the music, the beautiful sort of stringed instruments playing in the background, in a very sort of like a really, you might say spooky, but it was just in such a beautiful and a gentle and an ethereal way. And of course I was there with them, so they knew that there was no reason to be scared, even though they did have their hearts in their mouths for most of the time. Yes, Michelle, keep going.
You have next weekend is the story of Potato Man.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh. Yes. Okay.
And then
All
the
right.
following weekend you have Pure Evil meets Rosemary, and that's how you told me to write it down.
All right. So we have lots of stories. So at some point in the next few weeks, I'm going to talk about the Potato Man and his mother. If you add that down, because I was looking at you thinking, what? And then the story of how I faced evil. And then we now have another story of how my friend Joanne came with me to the Superstition Mountains, and how we heard the Apache, and we heard the story of how they hid among the Superstition Mountains. And you can hide in the Superstition Mountains, trust me. And how all of the Apache hid there, and they hid their wives and their children in those mountains. And anyway, that's a whole other story. So I mean, they just keep coming and coming. We've just got hordes of stories for you. Yeah, let's have another question or comment, shall we, Michelle?
Yeah, I was just putting it on the calendar. Anne is on from Norway. She says hello.
Good morning, Anne from Norway. We've got everybody all around the world now. Keep going. We love this.
Joyce says, hi, Rosemary.
Hi.
Loved the story.
Thank you. And don't forget, everybody out there, you're loving the stories. Share, share, share. Please share. If we can get everyone to share, and people all around the world, if we can get you all to share and share and share and share, that means that everybody gets a chance. Everybody gets an opportunity. When I share these stories with you, when I share my experiences with you, it's so that hopefully, you know, I can uplift you, I can explain things to you, I can tell you things about the spirit world that, you know, perhaps you don't know, or perhaps you've had a misunderstanding about, and we can then clear it up. However, whatever it is, or however you are affected, these stories are very much enlightening. They help us to see more clearly about what is out there and what is ahead for us. And I should also tell you the story about the little girl in the iron lung. Can you write that one down as well, Michelle? Because that's a rescue. That's a beautiful rescue story. And yes, you can read it in the book, but I shall give you a little more detail than is in the book. Anyway, so we've got all of these questions going on. So let's have another comment or question, Michelle.
Mavis says, "Hi, Rosemary. It's Mavis from the UK."
I know who you are. Hi, darling. Mavis, just to let everyone know, my darling Mavis, she was one of two. We used to call you the tea ladies, Mavis. I don't know if you know that we called you that, but these two ladies were there every week when we opened our healing centre, once a week. I can't remember what night it was on now, Wednesday or Thursday. I can't remember. Gosh, it's long ago. And they were always there. They were making tea. At first, when we went, they were a bit suspicious of us, as you would be. You know, we were a group of people wanting to give people healing and so on. And I'll tell you one of those stories, and maybe a few of those. I've got so many stories to tell you at some point. But Mavis was there every week with her partner in crime, making tea for all of our patients, and just being those two friendly faces we used to see. As time went on, they warmed to us, and of course we warmed to them as well. So thank you, Mavis, for all that you did for us in our first healing centre. And you know, I'm coming to England at some point, and I want to see you. We'll go for a drink or something anyway, right? All right. Sorry, Michelle, let's keep going.
Monique is on. She says, "Hello, greetings from Monique in Belgium. Love your story and thank you for sharing."
I didn't catch her name. What was her name again?
Monique.
Monique. Good morning, Monique. What a beautiful name. Thank you, and I'm glad you loved the story. We're just going to keep telling stories and stories and more stories and more stories. Yep.
Linda said, "Love your story. I could see it happening in my mind."
Oh, well, thank you, Linda. Next story. Is Karen still on, by the way? If Karen's still on, if you're still there, Karen, just want to say hi to you. And hi to LJ if you're watching, and I hope you are, my darling. I just love you both very much. And again, I want to shout out Reese may have left us by now. You never know, but I still want to say I do love my boy. I do love my darling boy. And of course, if his mother's there with him, I love you too. Yeah, keep going.
Mary is on.
Morning, Mary.
And she's got a question. She says, "I'm not trying to be silly.
Oh, go ahead.
My 9-year-old son has what looks like to be mosquito bites. Please ask Grey Eagle if he knows what's biting my son. The doctors can't figure it out."
You know what I'm going to suggest you do, Mary, is send us an email, and I'll take a look. I'll take a look, and I'll talk to Grey Eagle, and we'll see if we can help you out there. But send us an email with that question. Remind me, and Michelle will read the email out to me, and I'll see if Grey Eagle can know more about it. But it might take a few minutes to do that. So just send me an email, rosemary@rosemaryataltair.com. Remind me of the question. I'm not promising I can help, but I'll see if I can. Okay.
Steffi would like to know,
Morning, Steffi.
is it possible that Grey Eagle is my spirit guide too? Because I feel the presence, but I'm not sure, and I asked for signs and they all point to an eagle, but I'm not for sure.
Well, I'm asking Grey Eagle, and he's saying he's far too busy with me. Sorry, but no. But you wouldn't be the first person to think that. And if you sort of can understand how this works, you know, Grey Eagle has lots of people helping him, as I have lots of people helping me. And so it is possible that you know, you're on the radar, but no, not a spirit guide. He's put his hand on my shoulder. I have to say, he's all mine. Keep going.
Paula said, "Good afternoon, Rosemary. I hope you're keeping safe."
Good afternoon, my darling. You're saying good afternoon. It's morning here, so I'm presuming you're in another country. Maybe you're in England. I don't know. Thank you. Yes, we are all keeping safe, and the same to all of you out there. If you're in England, by the way, or the British Isles, please wear masks, would you? I know that a friend of mine, I was talking to her in a supermarket the other day, and I said to her, "You're not wearing a mask," and she said, "Well, nobody really told us to." Get a mask, put a mask on, would you? When you go out, just stay safe, and you know, just take all the precautions. But if you're going to go into a crowded and a busy place, you do, I think, for your own safety and your own sake, and for the sake of your family, your friends, your kids, and all of those people. If you get sick, the potential is that other people will get sick. Other people who are with you, who are family and so on, they'll get sick as well. So please, 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 all of you, keep safe, would you? Okay, keep going, Michelle. You're busy today, Michelle. They're keeping you hopping here.
Yep, they like us today quite a bit. Lewis said, "Thank you for sharing your gift to all of us."
Oh, you're very welcome, my darling.
Sherry said, "Hello, Rosemary. You are a great storyteller, but what most shocks me about the event is the breath you felt on your neck, because we always associate breath with life. How are they able to create the sensation of breath?"
They don't create it. I mean, it's you know, I will often say to people, when people come to me for consultations and so on, and I see whoever it is, their mother, their father, brother, sister, whoever it is who's with them, who's come to talk to them from the spirit world, and I'll often say to someone, you know, that your mother's stroking your face, or you know, he's put his hand on your shoulder, or your father's stroking your hair, and it amazes me that so many people can't feel that. But I think the more aware you become, and the more open you become, and the more you're able to raise your level of consciousness and become more sensitive to these things, the more you will feel them. The more you will feel somebody stroking your face, or somebody brushing your hair, or so on. When my father has come to visit me and he holds me, I mean, he's solid. He's much more solid than I am. He, you know, with his etheric spirit body, he holds me, he hugs me, he has his arms around me. And of course I feel him. And so when someone is standing close to me, just as it happens here, and you know, if my daughter or my grandson are standing close to me, they're whispering to me, I'm going to feel their breath. You know, and it's as simple and as normal as that. I know it might be a little bit mind-boggling, but really and truly, it really is simple. Keep going.
The next one is Anne-Marie says, "Hi, Rosemary. Say hi to Grey Eagle for me," with a big smiley face.
Anne-Marie, thank you so much. Thank you. He hears you, but thank you.
Maria said, "Hello, lovely lady."
Hi, Maria.
Karen did say that she would love to hear the story of Superstition Mountain.
Well, I know. I know. You all like these stories, and they are such amazing stories. Anyway, let's not get into that. Thank you, Karen.
Maggie said, "Rosemary, I just read an article about Native American tales of the moon people and spirit people.
Yes.
Does Grey Eagle have any information on these tales?"
Well, we'll tell you a few of them. If you keep watching our story time from time to time, we're going to tell you a few of them, and it won't be just my stories, because these stories that I'm telling you, they are not really my stories. I'm involved, so I experience them. But the story that I just told you is of a brother and a sister who were separated for more than 50 years because of a terrible, terrible tragedy that happened to her, and now they come together again, and with their parents. That's really that's the story. The fact that I see and hear and the fact that all of us who were there with our chairs in our little circle, with our glasses of wine and our crackers and cheese and so on, the fact that we heard these things and I saw these things is sort of an added bonus to the story. But the stories are always other people's, and many of the stories that I'll be telling in the future will be Grey Eagle stories. So let's keep going.
Joyce said, every night when I lay down to go to sleep, I hear music. Who is trying to get in touch with me?
Off the top of my head, I'm really not sure, but Grey Eagle tells me to tell you, you know, whenever I feel his hand sort of either squeezing my shoulder or patting me on the shoulder, whenever I feel that, I know that he has something to add. So I do feel that it's your angels who are singing you softly to sleep. So just go with it and let it happen. As I try to say to my students, the more we ponder, the more we wonder, the more we try to dissect it. And you know, Americans are very keen on dissecting things and trying to get the reasons behind things and to analyze things. And sometimes, you know, I remember the first time I went to a movie with a friend of mine in America, and it was a great film. It was a really good film, and you know, we watched it, and at the end, everybody sort of, and I could hear everybody around me dissecting this movie. Oh, well, you know what, when he said that to her, what he was really saying was, and when that was a message, and that was, you know, that's a moral message to us all about. And I'm hearing people all around the theatre dissecting and trying to reason out why the movie is what the movie is. And I'm sure perhaps the movie makers, and perhaps even the artists, and perhaps the, you know, the movie stars, I'm sure that they would be very flattered by that. But for me, it was a movie. I loved it. It's a movie. Let's move on. So be careful not to dissect or to go into the reasons why. Allow the river to flow. Just stand in the river and let it flow and go with the flow of the river. Just allow the energy to flow in whatever way it wants to, and allow yourself to raise your level of consciousness, because the more you try to analyze and what is it and what does it mean and so on, the more you're actually blocking, the more you're sort of stopping the flow of energy, and you're trying to direct it in a way that it actually doesn't want to go. Michelle.
Maggie said that she would be so honored if she had someone like Grey Eagle guiding her, and that she'd feel bad for them at the same time.
Yeah, me too. Can you imagine having to walk around with me for, you know, 24 hours a day? Can you imagine that? I am not an easy person, I have to say. You know, it's and anyway, let's say no more about that. Let's move on. Thanks for that, Maggie.
Mary has a question.
Yes, Mary, I'm listening.
She says, I have a feeling that Grey Eagle Speaks will be your last work.
Oh,
question mark.
Geez, hope not. No, we're not going there. Thank you, Mary, but no, because it may well be I'm not looking at it as my last book, but it's different than anything else, because it's not something I wrote. I'm just transcribing. A lot of people have been a part of this book. People have asked questions. You're asking questions, and sometimes people ask questions, and Grey Eagle will answer. And so, you know, a lot of people have contributed to this book, and I'm sure that once this book is published, all of the hundreds, if not thousands, of questions you all might have will double or triple, because you will have way more questions than you ever thought possible, and I'll be working with that as well. So you know, my last work is only my last work when I'm gone, and even then I'm probably still going to be working in the spirit world. I do hope so anyway. Next, Michelle.
Paula is on.
Who?
Paula.
Paula, good morning.
And I'm probably going to butcher these names, but I'm going to try.
Okay. Oh.
It says, Love from Tweakesbury. It's Tewekesbury.
Tewkesbury.
How did you get that out of there?
We're in England. Thank you, darling.
Gloucestershire.
Gloucestershire.
I was close on that one.
You were. This is so funny.
Remembering the RTHK experience in Hong Kong in 1991.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
With Valerie Whitehead show.
Oh gosh. Lovely, lovely Valerie. Yes. And there's some more stories right there. In my experiences in Hong Kong. We just keep coming up with them all. And listen, if you know of some stories or remember some stories, please write them into us. We had a lovely lady who wrote a story and we've gotten permission to use that. So down the road, we're going to use that story. But if you have experience with me, I don't care how far back you have to go, but Hong Kong was a brilliant, it was a brilliant, and I went a few times. So if you were anywhere in the world and you had something going on with me or you have a story to tell, please email me, rosemary@rosemaryaltea.com. Recount the story so I can remember you all and get back in touch with you all, because that would just be lovely. And I do have another story. While I'm thinking of it, Michelle, can you just write down, see, poor Michelle, she's having to read all your stuff and write stuff down for me at the same time. The little boy in Hong Kong who was lost. If you could just say that is another story. And yes, you can read that one in one of my books, I know, but I should be telling it, so I shall make it come to life. Keep going. Yep.
All right, the next one is from Paola.
Paola, yeah?
Probably. It says, Hi, Rosemary.
Hi.
How many people from the spirit world can we have by our side? I'm asking because I feel a lot of people, and a medium, in fact, told me once that there was an army around me. Why so many?
Well, what she probably meant by an army was maybe just your whole family from maybe a generation or two back. You know, sometimes our families are very, very close, or for some reason they feel that you need that support in that moment. It doesn't mean that you've got an army 24/7. It simply means that as the medium is talking to you, she sees a mass of people, your family, your friends, and so on. They've all come. It's almost as if they've come to have a party with you. You know, they've come to celebrate with you in that moment. So that's nice. But yeah, we can see many people with sometimes though, when I give consultations, this does happen quite a bit. You'll get someone who wants to talk to, like we might have somebody who's lost their son or somebody who's lost their grandmother, and so on, and they come and they say, don't talk to anyone else, even if you see somebody else. This is my time. So and depending on the situation, the circumstance, I will often just focus on that one person in the spirit world who wants to have their time and their moment. And it's usually when it's a very important, a very special person. So, yeah, next, keep going. We've a little bit of time left.
Okay. Steffi said, thank you for responding to me. She says she wants to know how she can know who her spirit guide is. I have another question. I read your book where you say there's different types of souls. But if the dark soul doesn't come from God, where does it come from? Sorry for all the questions. I'm just really curious.
Right, here's the thing. Let's deal with spirit guides. Most people do not have one. We have our family and our friends who love us, and they're the ones who come around us, and they're the ones who try to guide and steer us. A spirit guide, as I've said so many times before, is that person who only works with those of us who work on a full-time basis in this work. So And if you want to know more about that, you just need to, go to our show, The Spirit World Sees All, and you'll find in somewhere in there, you can go back, you'll find those on YouTube. I forgot what the second question was, actually.
Where does the dark soul come from if it doesn't come from God?
Read soul signs. This universe of ours and the many, many universes that are out there are balanced, and they're balanced for a reason. Where there is light, there is dark. Where there is positive, there is negative. We know that. We know that because, we experience this on our own earth plane. We have positive energies, we have negative energies. With our electricity, we have positives and negatives. With any kind of energy, with anything that's going on, we have the positives and the negatives. And, we talk about God, a God force, a force of light, a force of truth, and a force of loving. But there are other forces that are out there. Let's be clear about that. And they're not always necessarily so nice. But we'll go into that more at another time. Let's have another question. Can we have a fun, happy, lively question here? Because we only have so much time left, my darlings. I'd love to keep going with you all, but we only have so much time left. I'm concerned about Michelle. She's got a family to go to. She's got a father he's injured, and so on. So
been cranky.
Yeah.
Jetta is on this morning.
Morning, Jenna.
And it says, "A very good morning, Rosemary, and what a great gift you have." Somebody just commented, so it scrolled it right out of my view. What a great gift you have. You helped so many people.
Thank you, my darling.
She said, you love baking. Did you make I don't even know how I'm going to say that. It's like bak de pooties cake.
Okay. You're going to have to be, I'm afraid, Jenny, you're going to have to be clearer.
I'm going to spell it for you, and then I'll finish with the rest of the comment.
It's not baklava, is it? No.
No, it's definitely not baklava. It's BOKKEPOOTJES.
Apparently not, because I don't even know what it is. But thank you for asking, and maybe you could email me, send me the recipe and the spelling, and also how to say it. And and if it sounds good and the ingredients sound good, I'll definitely have a go at it, and I'll tell you how I get on too. So
she said, I'm going to finish her comment for you real quick. She says, "Bless you, stay safe.
Thank you.
Greetings from Jetta from the Netherlands."
Okay. I'd love to know more about the cake, so please let us know. Yeah. Let me know when you're done, Michelle.
Maggie said, "Mary, I hope there's more from Rosemary." Paula said that she'll expand on Hong Kong soon.
Oh, please.
That ours was an extraordinary. There must be something really good there.
I want to hear it. You've got to write it out for me.
Maggie laughed and she said, "Michelle, you are so my people. I'm trying to see these words and say them along with you."
We try, don't we, Michelle? Poor Michelle.
I try. Oh, Violet's picking on me too about my English pronunciation of the British names.
Of the Tewkesbury?
That's okay.
Hi, Violet.
She said, "Please say Bicester." Is that what that is, Bicester?
I don't know.
It's Bicester. I know she's picking on me, and I'm okay with that.
Is it Leiceester?
No, it says Bicester. It says B. Bicester.
Well, I'm lost as well then. I know that I come from the city of, and it's spelled Leicester. Yeah, I did it fast. So when you read it, people are saying Lie or Leicester or something like that. I know we have some weird spellings in my country.
Wendy said
Leicester.
Bister.
Leicester.
No, Wendy said Bister. B-I-S-T-E-R.
Bister. Okay then. Forget it. Ignore Violet from now
It's
on.
okay. I don't mind her picking on
Violet,
me.
you're
I'm completely
confusing
good
us.
with that. I like it. It's fine. Linda said, I hope you don't mind the question, but I'm concerned for my sons who are in the police department and fire department, especially during these crazy times. Oh, that was her question from earlier that she talked to you about.
Okay. I think they'll be fine. I think they'll be fine. Don't worry too much. It's easy to say with a mother, isn't it? But try not to worry too much. Keep going. We try and get
Violet
as
said I'm
many
making
here
her,
as we
I'm
can.
making her laugh.
Violet's what?
Violet said I'm making her laugh, and
I'm
that's
calling
okay.
you later.
At least we're having a good time.
I
It could be
know.
a nice
I
thing.
know Violet very well. And I know her wicked sense of humour. I should call you later on, young lady. Go, keep
No,
going.
she's good. No worries. I think it's hilarious. So Sharon says, "You're looking well, Rosemary.
Oh, thank you.
It's been a long time since I saw you.
All the wrinkles and all the
Bobby?
stuff that goes on, and yeah, but yeah, thank
She
you.
said the last time she saw you was when you were in, I think it's Scobie.
Scorby. Scorby.
S-C-A-W-B-Y?
Yeah, I did live in Scorby for a while. Can you just please write me a story? Why did you come to see me? Or maybe you must have come to see me. I want to know what happened. Tell me your story, because I might want to tell it if you give me permission. Please write. Again, email me, Rosemary at rosemaryltair.com.
She said then she saw you lots of times in Epworth, and before that.
Actually, it was actually after then, I think.
She said,
Or
I
maybe
always
not.
remember when Samantha was taking her driving test,
Oh God, yes.
and you wished her well, and then you said she had gone. It says, how can you tell your daughter she was going to fail her first test, but she'd pass the next time?
Yeah.
Just wondering if she ever asked you if you knew why, and why you didn't say anything to her before that.
Who is this? Who's
Sharon.
Oh right, okay.
She said, I miss you so much.
Oh.
Would love another reading sometime when you're over there again.
Well, you know what? I'm going to put it out when I'm going over to England. I'll put it out, and you know, if you want to be on our emailing list, please email me, Rosemary at rosemaryltair.com, and we will put you on the mailing list, but only if you request it. And then you can find out what I'm doing and where I'm going and so on, and to know all about Samantha's driving test. I also told Samantha when she was going to have the baby, and my darling boy, if he's still listening, I bet he's bored to tears and gone off by now, but I gave her the day, the time, the date, everything, and you know, which I'll maybe tell you that story at another time. Anyway, keep going.
Jenna said she's going to send you the recipe for the whatever that is pie.
Yeah.
And that have a nice weekend.
Thank you. All right.
Everybody's picked on me a little bit about my British pronunciations, which I'm okay with. If you don't try, you never learn.
All right. I think we're done unless you see anything else that I think we're done. We can keep going on and on like this. So let me just say again, if you want to know more about having a consultation with me, if you want to know more about my books, please let me know. We are, at the moment, our guided meditation is out. You can find that on Amazon or wherever you can find music, iTunes or wherever. It is called A Journey Towards Healing. We have another one coming out this next week, which is called
A Garden of Souls.
A Garden of Souls. So there'll be 2 guided meditations out there this next week, and I'm sure you will love them because it's my little voice you'll be hearing. So if you want to know more about my books, our activities, what we're up to, what we'll be doing, my travel plans, if and ever we ever get travel plans again. Of course we will. So, you know, again, email me, rosemary@rosemaryalateo.com. If you have a story to tell, whether it's a story that involves me or Grey Eagle, or whether it's your own personal story, you know, spiritual story, sort of an experience that you had, please share it with us, because I would love to share those stories. We do have a competition for all of you. I'm so sorry for all of you. We've had so many people from all over the world this morning. This competition only applies to those who are in the United States, because it costs too much, and there's all this stuff about, you know, customs and so on. It doesn't mean you can't join in the competition though. Please, it is in two parts. The first part, please write and tell us, what is the best advice that was ever given to you? Tell us a little bit about that, not too much, but a little bit. And second part, what is the best advice that you think that you've ever given to anybody else? Did they take that advice? What happened? Did they ignore it? And what happened? And so on. So you just need to write a couple of paragraphs of each of those. The first part, again, what is the best advice that was ever given to you? Second part, what is the best advice you ever gave to somebody else? We'd love to hear it. Email us, rosemary@rosemaryalateo.com. Even though we can only sort of have winners who are within this country, because of it costs so much, and customs and one thing and another, we'd love to hear from all of you all over the world. We really would love to. And please send in the entries. They have to be in by May 18th. I'm giving away prizes, lots and lots of prizes for people, because it is my birthday on May 19th. So I've decided, instead of having gifts coming to me, I will send out gifts to other people. So we're going to have lots of prizes, lots of winners, and so you can put in as many entries as you like, and I shall start reading them, and I'm the only one who's judging this competition, nobody else, so it's all down to me at the end of the day. But we would love to hear from you, and I'm going to start and read some of those entries. If you when you send us an email, put in the subject line competition, so that Michelle can really sift through. If you want healing, again, put it in the subject line. Michelle can sift through. Again, a consultation, put in that consultation. So I think that's it for today. Next week, on Wednesday afternoon, we should be doing our Healing Hands Around the World on Wednesday afternoon at 1:30 Eastern Standard Time. So sorry for all of you who are watching at this time, but unfortunately Michelle had a family emergency. Her father broke his ankle, so we had to cancel that. On Thursday morning, as ever, 11 a.m. Thursday morning, we shall be having the Spirit World Sees All, where you get an opportunity and a chance to ask questions and make comments and so on. And on Thursday evening, our Everything is Attitude show. We used the I Believe app. We could not make it work. We could not get into it this week. We tried and tried and tried. We were here, Al was here. We tried and tried, but we couldn't get into it. But we'll still keep trying next week, or we'll find another way. And of course, on Saturday morning, we'll have another story time. What will it be? I have to think about this carefully. We're making a list. We're getting a huge list together, all the stories that I really think you'll like to hear, and hopefully will be inspiring to you. So in the meantime, and also don't forget my students, classes, usual times and so on and so forth. My online classes are going so well. I have some brilliant students, and I'm loving every minute of that. So until I see you again, we're up to so many things. We do so many different things. Until I see you again, please, 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 it's Saturday, as my grandson would say. I love you, darling. It's the weekend. So from my grandson and from myself, please, please, please have a very, very, very blessed rest of the weekend. Thank you to Michelle, and please, have a wonderful rest of the day, and have a very, very blessed weekend, everybody. And I shall see you whenever. My email again, rosemary@rosemaryaltea.com. So email me and let me know how you're doing, what you're doing, what you're up to. Keep Michelle as busy as you possibly can, please. And that's it from me. Thank you for joining me. Bye-bye, everybody.